It was a typical busy Monday morning at Meadowview General Hospital. Nurses moved between patient rooms, doctors exchanged hurried instructions, and the air was filled with the usual controlled chaos. Sarah Thompson, the head manager, was making her rounds with her characteristic strictness. Known for her no-nonsense approach, Sarah had earned a reputation for being stern but effective. As Sarah patrolled the halls, she noticed a man walk in wearing a red MAGA hat, jeans, and a casual shirt. He looked out of place amidst the hospital's polished and professional environment. His calm demeanor and casual attire caught her attention for all the wrong reasons. Little did she know, this man was none other than Elon Musk, though dressed in an unassuming way that allowed him to go unnoticed by most. Sarah frowned, her instincts telling her he might cause trouble. She stormed over to intercept him. "Excuse me, sir," she said curtly. "This is a professional environment, and political propaganda is not welcome here." Elon, with his usual calm expression, replied, "I'm here on business, I assure you. I promise not to disturb anyone." Sarah, unimpressed, responded sharply, "I don't know what your business is, but you need to leave. We don't allow disruptions here." After a brief exchange, Elon chose not to argue. Security was called, and Elon left with a polite smile, saying, "Remember, appearances can be deceiving." Sarah returned to her duties, satisfied, but had no idea how much her actions would soon haunt her. The rest of the day proceeded as usual, but the interaction lingered in Sarah's mind. There was something about the man's calmness that unsettled her, as if he knew more than he was letting on. She shook her head, dismissing the feeling. Just another troublemaker, she thought. Little did she know, this ordinary Monday would mark the beginning of an extraordinary chain of events, one that would challenge everything she thought she knew about leadership, respect, and judgment. The very next day, Sarah was at her desk, sorting through paperwork, when a sudden commotion at the hospital entrance caught her attention. She stood up, peering over the stacks of files to see what was going on. To her dismay, it was the same man she had confronted just yesterday. He was stepping out of a sleek black SUV, the sun glinting off the vehicle's polished surface. This time, although still casually dressed, he wore a blazer over his shirt, which lent him an air of subtle authority. Sarah felt her temper flare instantly. Without a moment's hesitation, she left her desk and strode purposefully towards the entrance, her shoes clicking sharply against the tiled floor. As she approached him, she felt her irritation growing. Who did this man think he was, coming back after being clearly told to leave? "You again?" Sarah snapped, her eyes narrowing as she got closer. "I thought we made it clear you're not welcome here." The man, Elon Musk, smiled politely, the same calm expression he had worn the day before still firmly in place. "I have every right to be here," he responded simply, his tone giving no hint of confrontation. Sarah bristled at his calm demeanor. She could feel the eyes of patients, visitors, and even her staff on her. She wasn't about to let someone undermine her authority, especially not in front of everyone. Refusing to listen, she immediately turned and summoned security once more. As the two guards approached, she noticed that some of the hospital staff were whispering among themselves. She caught snippets of their conversation. "Is that Elon Musk?" one nurse whispered, her eyes wide. "I heard he bought the hospital," another staff member muttered, her voice filled with awe. Sarah frowned, shaking her head. Surely this was just gossip, wild speculation fueled by the mysterious man's casual confidence. She dismissed the whispers, determined not to let them distract her from her responsibilities. Security reached Elon, and after a brief conversation, they began to escort him out, just as they had done the day before. Elon complied without protest, but as he was led away, he glanced back at Sarah, his expression unreadable. "Appearances can be deceiving," he said again, his voice carrying just enough for her to hear. It sent an uneasy chill down her spine, but she ignored it, putting on a confident front as she returned to her duties. Later that afternoon, the hospital administration announced an urgent meeting scheduled for the following morning. Sarah's heart sank as she read the memo. The wording was vague, but something about it left her feeling unsettled. The pieces of the day's events seemed to fit together too well to be a coincidence. The mysterious man, the whispers about Elon Musk, and now an urgent meeting. Sarah couldn't shake the nagging feeling that the two incidents might be related. She tried to dismiss it, focusing instead on finishing her tasks for the day, but her mind kept drifting back to the man's calm expression and the whispers of her staff. What if there was something more to all of this? What if she had made a mistake? The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings, paperwork, and patient concerns, but the unease never left her. As she locked her office door that evening, Sarah couldn't help but glance towards the main entrance, half expecting to see that same red MAGA hat one more time. She shook her head, chastising herself for letting the day's events get under her skin. Just rumors, she muttered to herself as she walked to her car. There's no way it could be true. But as she drove home, a small part of her couldn't help but wonder what tomorrow would bring, and whether she was truly prepared for it. The uncertainty gnawed at her, leaving her restless and uneasy. Little did she know, the events of the next day would completely upend everything she thought she knew about the hospital, her leadership, and the mysterious man who seemed to know far more than he let on. The next day, the hospital's main conference room buzzed with anticipation. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting a golden glow across the long, polished table. Senior administrators sat on either side, their faces a mixture of curiosity and unease. Sarah entered, her confidence wavering as she saw who was standing at the head of the table. Elon Musk. He was flanked by the chief financial officer and other high-ranking members of the hospital's board, all of whom looked visibly tense. Sarah felt her pulse quicken, and she took a seat, trying to keep her composure. She hadn't expected to see him again, let alone in such a setting. The room fell silent as Elon looked around, his gaze calm yet commanding. "Good morning, everyone," Elon began, his voice steady, carrying an unmistakable authority. "My name is Elon Musk, and as of recently, I am the new owner of Meadowview General Hospital." Gasps echoed through the room, and whispers began spreading like wildfire. Sarah felt her face flush hot, her heart sinking. She could barely breathe as realization hit her. This was no ordinary man she had escorted out. Her encounters with him the past 2 days had been with the person now standing at the helm of the hospital. Elon continued, unbothered by the stir his announcement had caused. "I have a vision for this hospital, one that emphasizes respect, empathy, and accountability," he said, his voice unwavering as he looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. "I believe leadership should inspire and uplift, not intimidate. We're here to serve our patients, and that starts by creating an environment where everyone feels valued, patients, staff, and visitors alike." Sarah swallowed hard, knowing that his words were meant for her as much as anyone else in the room. She remembered how she had confronted him twice, dismissing him without a second thought. Now, she could feel the weight of her actions pressing down on her like a heavy stone. Elon glanced in Sarah's direction, and she could feel every eye in the room turn towards her. She knew she had to say something. Slowly, she stood up, her knees feeling weak, her voice shaky. "I apologize for my actions," she began, her face flushed. "I didn't understand who you were, and I made judgments I shouldn't have. I let my assumptions cloud my professionalism." Elon nodded, accepting her apology but without breaking his steady gaze. "Thank you, Sarah," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. "This isn't just about me. It's about ensuring that everyone who walks through these doors feels valued and respected. We are all in this together, and it's time we start acting like it." The room remained quiet, the tension palpable as Elon continued. "Effective immediately, we will be implementing changes that focus on improving communication, respect, and morale across every department. I want leaders who inspire their teams, not those who rule through fear or intimidation. We're better than that." His gaze swept across the room before landing back on Sarah, and she knew that this was her chance to redeem herself. The CFO cleared his throat, stepping forward slightly. "We will be holding workshops on leadership, empathy, and effective communication," he added, visibly trying to bolster Elon's statement. "These workshops will be mandatory for all senior staff members. We need to set the right example." Sarah nodded, the reality of the situation sinking in. This was her opportunity to grow, to become a better leader. Elon's words weren't just a reprimand. They were a challenge, an invitation to rise above her past actions. And despite the embarrassment, despite the fear, Sarah found herself feeling something she hadn't expected: hope. Maybe this could be a turning point for her, and maybe she could finally become the kind of leader her staff deserved. Elon's tone softened as he continued. I know that change isn't easy, but I believe in this hospital, and I believe in all of you. Together, we can create something extraordinary. It starts today, and it starts with all of us taking a good look at how we treat each other and our patients. The administrators exchanged glances, and Sarah noticed a few nodding in agreement. The atmosphere in the room shifted from tense to something more hopeful, more determined. Elon's words resonated with everyone present, and for the first time, Sarah felt like they were truly on the same page. As the meeting concluded, Elon approached Sarah. I appreciate your willingness to apologize, he said, his eyes kind. Leadership is about learning and growing, and it seems you're ready to do just that. Sarah managed a small smile. Thank you for the opportunity, she replied, her voice still shaky but sincere. I won't let you down. Elon nodded. I know you won't. Let's make Meadowview a place we can all be proud of. As Sarah left the conference room, she felt a strange mixture of fear and determination. She knew that the coming days would be challenging, that she would have to confront not only the mistakes she had made, but also the attitudes that had led her there in the first place. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was on a path that mattered, one that could lead to real change. The whispers from her staff followed her down the hallway, but they were different now, less judgmental, more curious. And maybe, just maybe, they would soon see her in a new light. As she walked away, she resolved to prove to herself, to Elon, and to everyone at Meadowview that she could be the leader they needed, one who led with empathy, strength, and respect. Over the next several weeks, Sarah made it her mission to change the way she led. She knew that in order to gain the respect of her team and live up to Elon Musk's expectations, she needed to transform herself from a detached authority figure into an approachable and supportive leader. She started her mornings by stepping out of her office to greet the staff, making rounds through the hospital to engage directly with the people who kept the facility running. Instead of just issuing orders, Sarah began asking questions and, more importantly, listening to the answers. She noticed things she had previously overlooked: an overworked nurse struggling with double shifts, a maintenance request that had gone unanswered for weeks, and the small victories of the staff that often went uncelebrated. Sarah took it upon herself to address these issues. She personally ensured that the long-overlooked maintenance problems were resolved, making calls and following up until everything was fixed. She even participated in rounds with the nurses, observing their daily challenges firsthand and offering her support whenever possible. One afternoon, while Sarah was helping organize medical supplies in a storeroom, Elon Musk approached her. She looked up, startled, as he stepped into the small, cluttered space. He regarded her quietly for a moment before speaking. You're doing well, he said simply, his voice steady but warm. Sarah managed a smile, though she still felt a pang of insecurity. I still have a lot to make up for, she replied honestly, her voice soft. Elon nodded thoughtfully. We all do. The important thing is that you're trying, he said, giving her a reassuring look before leaving her to her work. Sarah's efforts did not go unnoticed by the rest of the staff. Employees who had once avoided her began to greet her with smiles. They saw her in the hallways, not just issuing directives, but listening to their concerns and making real changes. She was present during busy shifts, helping to ease the burden on her team, and her presence alone made a difference. The hospital began to feel less like a workplace ruled by fear and more like a community working together. Patients also noticed the difference. They sensed the shift in the atmosphere, a newfound warmth that radiated from the staff. Nurses, freed from the constant pressure of a rigid hierarchy, were more attentive and seemed genuinely happy to be at work. The sense of care and compassion that Elon had spoken of was slowly becoming a reality, and it all started with Sarah's willingness to change. One of the most significant moments came when a young nurse approached Sarah during a particularly hectic shift. The nurse, visibly exhausted, hesitated before speaking. I just wanted to say thank you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, for listening to us, and for actually making things better. It means a lot. Sarah felt her eyes well up. It had been years since she had felt this kind of connection with her team. She nodded, her voice catching slightly as she replied, "Thank you for saying that. It means a lot to me, too." As the days turned into weeks, the changes in Sarah became more apparent. She no longer hid behind the walls of her office, but instead worked alongside her staff. She learned the names of every nurse, janitor, and technician, and made sure they all knew that they were valued. The more she listened, the more she realized how much her staff had to offer. Ideas, solutions, and insights that had gone unheard for far too long. Sarah's redemption journey was not without its setbacks. There were moments of doubt and days when the challenges seemed insurmountable. But each time she felt herself slipping back into old habits, she remembered Elon's words. Leadership was about growing and learning. And that's what she did, one day at a time, one conversation at a time. The transformation at Meadowview General Hospital was profound. It wasn't just about fixing the physical issues or improving workflow. It was about changing the culture, the way people treated each other, and the way they viewed their roles. Sarah was no longer just a manager. She had become a true leader, someone her team could look up to and trust. And as Elon watched from the sidelines, he knew his faith in her had not been misplaced. Meadowview was finally becoming the kind of hospital he had envisioned. A place where people mattered, where respect and empathy were at the core of everything they did, and where even the smallest actions could bring about meaningful change. To celebrate the positive changes at Meadowview General Hospital, Elon Musk decided to host an event for the entire staff and their families. It was a beautiful evening filled with delicious food, live music, and laughter. The cafeteria was transformed into a festive gathering space, adorned with twinkling lights and colorful decorations. For many of the staff, it was a rare opportunity to relax, bond, and enjoy each other's company outside the demands of their daily work pressures. As the evening progressed, the atmosphere grew more and more joyous. People danced, shared stories, and reveled in the sense of unity that had been growing steadily over the past several weeks. The staff's families, who had often felt the burden of their loved ones' stressful jobs, were able to witness firsthand the changes that had taken place at Meadowview. It wasn't just about better work conditions. It was about creating a supportive community. Midway through the evening, Elon took the stage, microphone in hand, and the crowd grew quiet in anticipation. After a few words of appreciation, he surprised everyone by inviting Sarah to join him. Nervously, she approached the stage, her heart pounding as she stood next to Elon. "I want to thank you all," Sarah began, her voice trembling slightly but growing steadier with each word. "I thought I knew what it meant to lead, but I've learned so much over these past weeks about empathy, about listening, and about the real meaning of respect. You all have taught me more than I could have imagined, and I am so grateful for that." The audience erupted in applause, and Sarah looked out at the faces of her colleagues, now full of warmth and acceptance. Elon nodded approvingly beside her, a smile on his face. The transformation at Meadowview wasn't just about new policies or procedures, it was about the spirit of the place. A true change had taken root, one that had brought the staff closer together as a family. As the applause subsided, Elon spoke once more. "This is just the beginning," he said, his voice full of conviction. "Together, we will continue to make Meadowview a place where everyone feels valued and respected." The cheers that followed echoed through the room, marking the beginning of a new chapter for the hospital, a chapter of hope, compassion, and genuine community. The story concludes with Sarah visiting a young patient in the pediatric ward, her heart swelling as she watched the child's eyes light up with joy. She sat beside the small bed, a storybook in hand, her voice soft as she read aloud. The child smiled, their eyes full of wonder as they listened, momentarily forgetting their worries. Sarah's presence brought a warmth that filled the room, and for a few precious moments, the world felt simple and bright. The tension and frustration that had once echoed through Meadowview General Hospital's halls were now replaced by a renewed sense of hope, care, and a shared mission for betterment. The changes weren't just in the policies or leadership, they were in the small interactions, the genuine smiles, and the compassion that now flowed freely between the staff, patients, and families. Sarah knew that the journey was far from over, but she was proud of how far they had come. As Sarah left the room, the sunlight streaming through the windows, Elon's voice narrated the closing scene. This story reminds us that leadership is not about power or authority. It's about service, respect, and the willingness to grow. He added, "What would you do in Sarah's situation? Would you be willing to change when faced with your own mistakes?" The camera panned over the bustling hospital, capturing the nurses tending to patients, the doctors consulting with families, and Sarah walking down the hallway, her head held high. The atmosphere was different now, lighter, full of promise, and with a sense of true community. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your story in the comments or email us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring tales. Let's spread the message of change, compassion, and second chances together.